Hi there, I'm Scott. I'm going to give you a bit of a tutorial on how to set up the VRWalking project. So here I have just a direct clone of the repository. I'm going to navigate within the project folder here. The first step will be to right click on the U project item here, and you're going to go to show more options, and you're going to do generate Visual Studio project files. And this will take a little bit of time. But basically, it's just generating the Visual Studio solution. So if you want to edit the C++ scripts, you could do it within Visual Studio. I recommend Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, and you're going to want to install some libraries to make it compatible with Unreal Engine. But there's plenty of other tutorials on that. Next step is to right-click on, actually no, you don't right-click, you just double-click the U project. And what this will do is pop up this window and it says blah 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 blah. Do you want to rebuild the modules? You're going to select yes. And this will generate the binaries and intermediary files that basically allow your project to run. As you've probably noticed, nothing happened. That's normal. You're just supposed to wait. It could take a minute depending on your machine. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes. Just wait and hang tight. Unreal Engine should eventually boot up. If it doesn't, then you can just try that process a couple more times. If that doesn't work, I recommend going into the solution and trying to rebuild the project from in there and then retrying that process. But I'll just wait here. Alright, great. You can see here it's starting up. It could take a little bit of time to initialize. Alright, great. We loaded into our project. As you can see, the shaders and textures are all loading. I'm just going to navigate here to this first tab. This is our scene. It's called Start 1. Looks like the shaders are still preparing. Let's let that go. Alright, great. So now I'm actually going to switch over to my phone with the Makopi app, the Makopi sensors. I'm going to set that all up. Alright, I'm going to assume you already set up the Makopi sensors and whatnot. Actually, I'll just go ahead and reset pose here just so you get a fresh start. Hello. Alright, so first things first, we're going to figure out how to get all the settings right. And so you want to switch from video to motion up here at the top. And then you want to switch from save to send just below the motion button. And you'll see that bottom button is now green. Now this next step is very important, but you click the three dots up in the upper right. You want to make sure lock hip is selected. Now this is super important. If you don't select this, your armature will just sort of walk away from you in VR space, and it will just, I don't know, it'll be weird. Once you select lock hip, you're going to want to center the Makopi. Just make sure it's centered in the Makopi sort of coordinates. And then you could press the green button to start transferring the data over the network. Alright, so now I'm going to switch back to Unreal Engine. And in this tab here, this Live Link tab, right next to the content browser, I'm going to select Source, and Makopi Live Link should be here, especially if it's already on. And just select Create Makopi Source. And as you can see in the viewport, you can already see your movement in real time, even though it's not even running yet. But great, that means it's working. I want to note that every time you set up Makopi and Unreal Engine, the coordinates won't always align properly. We tried to compensate for this as much as we can through blueprinting, but just the reality of the hardware is that it's a little bit inconsistent. Usually it does a pretty good job aligning itself, but sometimes you'll have to tweak this manually a bit once you run the game. I'll show you how to do this in a moment, but basically a green flag is if you see your legs here are centered within this capsule for your character, then you're solid. Here it looks a little off. We'll see how it is. but I could show you how to adjust it too. What you can do to sort of fix these weird positions and stuff in the Makopi app is you can recenter the positioning here with this button. As you can see, it's kind of working there. You can also reset the pose, which is a button to the left of that. And if you find that the correlation between the Makopi and your VR headset in VR is just too off, you could just recalibrate the sensors, and a lot of the times that fixes the weird positioning. I'm gonna go ahead and run this now and sort of just show you a bit what it looks like when you're in VR. You want to make sure your VR headset's set up. So I'm using Rift S. You'll probably be using an Oculus Quest 2, I believe, but just make sure it's set up, make sure the play area is ready to go. You should be good. But here I'm going to go and press play this in VR. All right, so great. I'm in VR. I can see my legs. You can see me putting my feet forward. I can walk around. You can see it's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job following me. Yeah, so there's multiple modes and stuff. But before we get to that, I want to show you how to tweak the positioning of your legs and stuff a bit more, just in case it's a little bit off. For me, it looks pretty on point. But if you want to rotate your legs, that's just the left and right arrow keys. If you want to move it up or down, that's the up and down arrow keys. And if you want a bit more control of the positioning of it, you could use WASD to adjust it. I recommend just pressing the W key, turn the direction it's moving, and then adjust from there to try to get it right below you. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the different modes. I'm assuming you're probably going to want to use this with a treadmill. If so, you want to select on BP movable character here. This is basically the controller for it's the actor controller for our VR headset. You want to navigate to general here under the details panel, just down to default. You're going to want to make sure Makopi actor selected here, or you'll get a bug. It should be selected by default. And here you can set a constant walk speed. So for example, if you're just using a tread with a linear, or not a linear, but with just a constant speed set on it, you can just set the correlating speed with that. So for example, if I want this to move at, let's say 1 meter a second, which is actually pretty fast, I could just set it here. I'll press play, and as you can see, it's moving. All right, you get the point. You could obviously use negative values to make it go the other way. And yeah, this next checkbox here is the walk gesture movement. So what this basically does is it takes the data from your motion tracker sensors, and it finds out which sensor's lower, and it calculates the movement of it and tries to apply that movement in the opposite direction to your character. So basically it's supposed to be like a walking simulator for a treadmill, except multi-directional. This is still experimental, still work in progress. I'm not going to bother showing it to you right now because I still have some fixes I need to put in before I re-push this. But yeah, that's what this is here. Head tilt compensation. What this does is it basically prevents your Makopi body from moving around when you tilt your head down and look at your legs. So what's interesting is that we have our legs here. They basically follow the camera around, and by default it would just sit directly under the camera. The issue with this is if you look forward, the camera moves forward because the camera is located in your VR headset, and your head moves forward, then your body moves forward too. So it doesn't make sense to look forward down at your legs and see your legs move in front of you. So what we do for this is we just have an offset cube that is a little bit lower, and it basically compensates for that. And I would just leave this to 30 by default, but you can adjust that too if you find that the camera's moving too far forward or behind. All right, so now for the data collection, you could select the BP CSV writer here, and you're going to select the data collector blueprint. And here you'll see your general default settings here. Again, you're going to want to have Macopi actor selected. It should be there by default. Same with the BP movable character. And here's a checkbox for collect data. So if I select this and I run the program, I'm going to put my headset on real quick, or at least try to. I'm just going to kind of like move around a little bit. And I'm just going to quit the app now. So basically, if that was selected, I'll bring up the same files as before. It's the same directory as before. I'm just going to navigate, and you're going to see it generated a VRWalking data folder. Just click on that, and then you'll get an Excel file with all the data of these skeletons. So all the bones that are in your body in the animated armature will be, the positions and rotations are in here. I won't go too far into depth on this, but that's the general gist of it. If you want to change the transform space that the data is collected, you can change it here. So we're using world coordinates. So for example, if the head coordinate will just be wherever the head is in the world space. If you want to change that type of space, you can select the parent bone space. So that's like in correlation to whatever bone is the parent. Just the actor space or component space. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm going to give you a little tour about where everything is. This part's optional. It's not as much the setup, but more so just how to navigate this project in general. Here you have everything in your world here in this world outliner. You got your foliage. I don't know how to say that, but your trees. You got your lighting stuff here. You got your rocks. All your rock obstacles, you can change that all in there. The terrain just contains all of these terrain assets in the grassy ground here. You got your data recorder here, your movable character, and then the child mesh object of that, which we demonstrated. Down here in the content browser, just in the general content folder, you can see this scene. This is the scene that's selected. You can see all the scripts. Yeah, that's pretty much it there. All right, I think that's all. I hope this was helpful. Yeah, so good luck and have a good day.